Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story number 1. Rejected, written by Rosie013. The first human that we'd ever worked with was a big shock to the crew. Everyone had heard the stories of how amazing it was to have a human on the ship, of course. The boundless strength and companionship that they provided. And of course, their strangeness. So our good captain went out and did what captains do. He took a risk and hired a new human crew member, a young male called Michael. We all had our reservations at the rash decision, none more so than me and the cargo handlers, but no one ever consults us about new hires. Naturally, all the rumors of the species' outlandish reputation quickly became betting on how long it would take for the human to do something truly bizarre, something alien. Every species had their quirks, but apparently humans had almost something else entirely. I felt cautiously optimistic with my own bid. A couple of days with a coin for a couple days apiece before the non-typical activity started to show themselves. Not even the captain could have guessed that the new hire would start being human on the very first day. Michael didn't look all that interesting to start with, just fairly standard bipedal body layout with mammalian features. He took instruction well and wasn't bothered by any of the other sailors' harsh language that me and the other handlers bandied about to test the new guy, and his impressive strength sped the loading process up quite a bit. It looked like having him around on the same shift would be quite desirable for us, doing us almost a quarter of the total work on his own. With that good first impression, we were away from the dock faster than expected and found ourselves in an uncommon position of having some free time on our hands. A few of the others had hoped Michael would join them in the rec room for a bit to get to know him better, but he declined, saying that he was tired and needed to settle in before the next work assignment. Fine by me. I sure as heck didn't want to miss the opportunity to put my feet up. There would be plenty of time to get to know the newbie later. The first sign that something was wrong was when Michael didn't show up for midday meal. Different eating cycle, perhaps. After a brief discussion, I got voluntold by the ship's second officer to go and fetch him. It wasn't hard to find. He was in his assigned prayer bunk in the communal quiet room. Dead. He was unresponsive, and still, it took all of my composure to remain calm while I called for medical. They couldn't do anything, of course, but this would have to be investigated. And on the first day, no less. I could not think about the poor human while I waited. Did we work him too hard? He said the sweat was a sign of hard work, not some sort of injury. We would have never been so rough on him on his first day had we known something like this could have happened. Other humans might have caused all kinds of problems for us and the captain if they thought it was something we did. The ship's on duty's medical staff arrived and took in the scene with blank faces of experience. There was certainly no more urgency in their movements now that they would be patient was confirmed beyond help. A stretcher was produced and Michael's remains moved onto it with great care. I couldn't help but flinch at my own failure to help his body made a soft moan of his air escaping his lungs. It was too much. I started a funeral dirge under my breath. Something I hoped his people did too. As the medics began to carry him away, they ran headfirst into the second officer, whom my shock had forgot to inform. When the dropped stretcher hit the floor, the corpse of the human sat bolt upright, eyes wide open. Everyone screamed. One of the medics bolted out of sight. I'm ashamed to admit, I might have defecated a little. It had taken some time, but everyone eventually calmed down. Enough to hear out the wildest explanation I've ever heard before. Or since. It turned out humans don't worship their gods like we do. Instead of the more normal, regular meditative rest cycle prayers, humans face a cruel gods literally head-on. According to Michael, every cycle a human will get themselves killed, usually through a combination of ingesting poisons, dangerous stunts, or in this case, worked to death, then lay down to die. If they are worthy, they gained access to the species' afterlife. If not, they are rejected, sent back to prove themselves anew, and again, and again. until they were accepted, eventually. We were all so stunned at this truly alien concept, none of us questioned it. Not even the captain, when news of the incident reached him. Of course, none of us knew Michael or humans in general enough to recognize the spark in his eyes as he explained this. The medics did the general health checks anyway, baffled that they had somehow overlooked this quirk of nature in the relatively new species. And that's the story of how my best friend Michael was allowed to nap on the job in prayer corner of the quiet room every day for the first 4 great cycles of our time working together, repeatedly rejected by the gods of hard work. I lost my bet on human strangeness on day 0. We all did. End of story. Story number 2. How to Make Things Go Fast, written by MuchUserSuchTaken. As you know, almost every species comes up with its own method of FTL travel. Except for the Merp, who theorized the evolutions of sapient, expansionist alien species and concluded that it was just a matter of time until someone would find them and they could voyage into the stars beyond with minimal effort. Anyways, most civilizations break the universal speed limit by somehow changing space around them, be it by creating a wormhole, surfing a gravity gradient, or shunting themselves into an alternate dimension with different constants. Humans, obviously, couldn't be normal and had to one-up everyone else. They invented a device called the FTL turbine, a form of reactionless propulsion that could reach incredible speeds given enough power. They were content, for a while, zipping around their solar system at almost light speed on what amounted to tin cans built around a set of turbines that spun at nearly relativistic speeds. Then, they had to go faster. Unfortunately, they were riding the very edge of what their material sciences could provide, and going any faster would mean that several dozen sharp pieces of ultra-strong blades would be ripped out of their housing by centrifugal forces. So, they innovated an entirely new field of study. They found a way to rip false carrier particles away from their intended interactions and point them all in the same direction. They broke physical fields to go faster. I'm sure that if the universe were capable of feeling, it would be quaking in their universal boots. This proved to be an amazing discovery, as not only could the humans go faster, but they could also make literal fields of force to protect their ships from impacts. All at a low price of possibly going up in flames around a tiny black hole or a sudden nuclear fusion reaction if things ever malfunctioned. Unfortunately still, they ran into the age-old speed limit of 300,000 kilometers per second, and time dilation began taking place. They were technically going faster, but they were also technically weren't. The sensible course of action would be to use their newfound technology to stretch and pinch space in order to cover more distance with the same amount of speed. Humans are not sensible beings. Instead of changing distance in order to maximize their distance over time, they decided it would be better to completely break thermodynamics, conservation of momentum, and several other quantum fields and quantum field-related stuff, and effectively threaten time with a gun and tell it to go faster. They achieved this time compression by pulling a ridiculous amount of energy out of nothing, generating antimass and a controlled environment, then using the force of mass being pushed away from it to keep their artificial gravity pointing the right way, their shields powered, and let their spaceships accelerate. This makes their FTL system almost entirely self-sufficient, only taking energy when it has to start. It is yet unknown and hotly debated why it happens, but when a human ship uses the mechanism to forcibly pass light speed in normal space, it only interacts with light and whatever has relative velocity lower than c. My personal guess is that the universe simply doesn't want to deal with their madness anymore, so it just ignores their existence when it breaks too many things. End of story. The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, clickety-click with an energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I'd just like to give a quick thanks to the T5 channel members and patrons: Alithia, Parky, Fudic Yall, Meridian117, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Angry Marine, Lord Azrakal, and White Van 420.